Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the third episode of our World Cup lineup. Today, to walk you guys through Groups E and F, I'm joined by Alex Ipoke.
Good evening, Kieran. Very happy once again to be with you to talk about this World Cup preview. Starting with Group E, pretty interesting group. So what are your thoughts on this group? Who do you think is going to make it through?
This is a pretty interesting group. I mean, obviously, when looking at it, you definitely have to concede that Brazil would probably take that first spot.
Right.
But when it comes to the second position, you could have gone anywhere, but I really feel like it might be Serbia.
Oh, really? I would obviously agree with you regarding Brazil, but I think that Switzerland is going to take the second spot and make it through to the round of 16. What makes you think Serbia is going to make it?
What really stood out to me when I looked at the Serbia team was their run-through qualification. I mean, for them to top their group in qualification is a huge step for them. Even now, when they're going into these friendlies before the competition, they won their last game 5-1 against Bolivia. So in these type of competitions, the run-up is extremely important, and Serbia are ticking all those boxes.
Right, that makes sense. It's true that Serbia's run through the qualification round was pretty impressive. For Switzerland, though, I think their main strength is the team as a whole. They don't have that many big individual players or big names in the squad. They've got a few names that everyone knows in Europe, like Xhaka, Lichtsteiner, Shaqiri, but none of them are like big star players that can just carry a team through to the semi-final or final. But what they have is a team that knows how to play together, that has shown great results both during the qualification round and the friendlies before the World Cup. They just drew against Spain. They pretty convincingly beat Japan 2-0. And they also have quite a lot of experience. Over the last World Cups and Euros, they consistently make it through the group stage. So it's not a very exciting team. It's just a team that knows how to get to that level, to beat the teams that are supposed to be around the same level than them in the group stage, and then go through to the round of 16, even though they often don't do that well in that stage.
Yeah, you make a really strong point for that Switzerland squad. But I mean, the one thing that Serbia kind of has in common with the Switzerland team is the squad. I feel like there's a really good mix between the youngsters who really have that desire to do well and prove themselves, and the more experienced players like Kolarov who could kind of reel it in and really command that dressing room. So it's going to be real interesting to see what happens in that second spot.
Yeah, for sure. It's pretty undecisive right now. But I think what we can agree on is that Brazil is going to top the group. And what do you think is going to allow Brazil to finish top of that group and maybe go on to, why not win the World Cup? Do you think it's going to be? Do you think the starting 11 is going to play a big role in that?
Yeah, I think for a team like Brazil that has so much depth and have so many resources to call upon when creating the squad, I feel like the starting 11 really gives you a sense of how it is they're going to go about playing in this competition. And unfortunately, even though Brazil have been doing pretty well so far leading up to the tournament, I feel like if they don't play Roberto Firmino up top, for people who don't know, they've been playing Gabriel Jesus currently. But if they don't play Roberto Firmino, I feel like they might fall in that last hurdle.
Oh, really? So you think that Firmino is the only way for them to get through it?
Yeah, definitely. I think Roberto Firmino is one of the most underrated forwards in Europe right now. I think his ability to play that false nine position rivals none. Maybe Karim Benzema when he was in his prime, but even then, Roberto Firmino has so many dimensions to his game that he'll be able to bring in the wingers like Neymar, like maybe Willian, who's going on the right-hand side, or whoever, to really bring them in the game and have a strong impact that Gabriel Jesus doesn't really have. I mean, he's a good finisher, but he can't really bring in other players as well as Roberto Firmino.
But don't you think that they need that kind of skills, a really good finisher up front? Because they already have players like, as you said, Neymar, Willian, players who can like create plays just on their own. And Firmino is a pretty good finisher, but I think Gabriel Jesus stops him for that. And maybe that's just what they need, a really good striker to finish off those actions and put the ball in the net. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. And right now that's been working really well. But I feel like when they come up against a stronger opposition, I feel like the end of that tip, so if all the balls are going through Gabriel Jesus and everyone's just trying to give it to him, it's going to be a little bit more predictable, and top-class defenders will be able to cut that out. On the other hand, if Roberto Firmino was involved in the game, defenders won't really know which attacker is going to get the ball, and so that's what made this Liverpool line so impressive. That front three were pulling themselves equally, and I feel like he could do the same job for Brazil.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's definitely going to be very interesting to watch Brazil and how they're going to do in this World Cup, especially considering how they got kicked out in the last World Cup at home, that humiliating 7-1 defeat against Germany. So yeah, lot of things to pay attention to in the coming up games.
Yeah, definitely very exciting times. But speaking of Germany, I feel like that's the perfect time to move on to Group F, which contained Germany, Mexico, Sweden, and Korea.
Yeah, it's another, maybe not as exciting of a group as the other ones, but for sure pretty undecisive, and one that sort of looks like the one with Brazil, like both Brazil and Germany being the obvious top finisher, or at least in my opinion, and then a very hard battle to come for the second spot. So do you also think that Germany is going to top that group?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Germany, one of the favorites for the tournament as a whole, will probably
definitely
take that first spot. But the second...
Who do you have second?
Yeah, the second position is really interesting. I might go for our CONCACAF friends, Mexico, to take that second spot. How about you?
I'm going to go with Sweden over Mexico. Sweden's been pretty impressive during qualification. They've never been a very exciting team. They're just really strong at the back, and they know how to play against stronger teams. They know how to sort of park the bus and just lock their defense, don't concede, and draw or win most of their games. That's how they kicked off Italy in the playoff. They won 1-0 at home and then went on to draw 0-0 in Italy. That's how they played their last two friendlies. They drew 0-0 against Denmark and Peru. So it's not an exciting team. They just got a really strong defense with players like Lindelof from Man United, a very good youngster. And up front, although they lost Zlatan, I feel like that only helped the team just get better as a whole and not just rely on that one huge star. And so now they've got like youngsters like Forsberg coming up and potentially helping Sweden to get through that hurdle.
Yeah, it must be a really exciting time for Swedish fans, kind of transitioning from the old guard of Zlatan Ibrahimovic to these youngsters that you mentioned there. But I think that they might fall to the mighty Mexico. I feel like Mexico's run through qualifications was pretty easy. I mean, going through CONCACAF isn't really too difficult given the quality that Mexico have. And the front line, I think, for this Mexico's team will be extremely exciting, especially these MLS standouts like Giovanni Dos Santos or Carlos Vela, who really are lighting the MLS up. It'd be really exciting to see them on the international stage and see if they can transition that good form onto this tournament.
Right, and you're afraid that because that team is mostly composed of like Mexican league player and MLS player, that we just might realize how MLS actually stands in terms of international level, which is not that great of a league. And so, aren't you afraid that those players just won't be able to to match the gap between the like MLS everyday level that they're used to and the international level where they face players like all the German players who are just amazing right now.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be a real test for not only this Mexican side, but kind of a testament to the level of soccer in North America. I think the MLS definitely has a bit of a gap in quality when it comes to other leagues, especially in Europe. But I feel like the fast-paced nature of it kind of could take some of these teams off guard. I think the MLS does get a bad rap for its defending, but its attacking is really good. There are some really good moves, especially from these Latin American players, and taking that sort of chemistry that they have from their domestic leagues and into this competition, it'll be really interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, as you said, that fast-paced attack, maybe that might not be enough to beat a team like Germany, but it could definitely be enough to like beat South Korea and Sweden, who are like both really compact teams at the back, and yeah, why not clinch the second spot position? Talking about Germany now, so you think that they'll easily top the group? You don't think they'll face any issues, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's a certain aura around this Germany team, especially after winning the Confederations Cup, although that was with almost the B team of Germany. I feel like they have a really good run, but there are some weaknesses I do see in this squad. But I'm wondering what your take is first.
I'm feeling really confident about Germany. They are the team with the least weaknesses. I think Spain is the overall most exciting team, but Germany is the one with the least weaknesses. They have a lot of experience. They've got top class players at every position. They can afford to leave a player like Sané on the side, who's had the season of his life with Man City. Their squad compared to the World Cup hasn't changed that much. They've got the main players still here. They just got some more talent, especially up front with players like Werner. And so I really think that they'll have no problem going through that group stage like they did in the qualification round where they won all their games. They're the only unbeaten team in the European zone, 10 games, 10 wins. So I really have no worries regarding Germany, especially considering the fact that in the last 4 World Cup, they've always reached at least the semifinals.
Yeah, they really do look pretty strong. But the one weakness that I was mentioning, not to go too tactical for our listeners, but I was kind of interested in the areas around the fullbacks. I feel like if a team were to have a good amount of pace on the wings attacking these German fullbacks, and they do kind of mimic the Tottenham press by not really going at the center backs, but kind of waiting for them to put a long ball in towards the forwards and kind of pounce on that motion while those two center backs are isolated. I feel like teams could get some joy from that area.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Germany will definitely be one of the hardest teams to beat, but if someone can do it, it's probably that's probably the way they should go about it. Another tactical choice that the opponents could go for is trying to just keep the ball as much as they can, just so that Germany doesn't have the ball. Because when you look at Germany's midfield with players like Özil, like Kroos, like Müller, it's players that they're not that fast, they're not that strong, but once they have the ball, oh my god, they can pass it to pretty much anyone on the pitch. They can find those spaces. I mean, just when you think of a player like Kroos and when you see what he's been doing with Madrid over the last 3-4 years, it's mind-blowing. So if you can try to limit the ball possession of Germany as little as possible and try to keep a pretty high lineup in terms of like defense, like press pretty high, keep the defense pretty high up on the pitch, then I think that could be another way of beating that German squad. But it definitely won't be easy for anyone.
Yeah, definitely. For two very different approaches into defeating this German team. So if there are any international managers listening, take your pick and let us know which one works.
And this concludes our 3rd episode of this World Cup preview. Thank you very much for listening. So if you would want to hear more about groups A and B and C and D, we've already discussed those in previous episodes released last week. And don't forget to tune in on Wednesday for our last preview of the last 2 groups of this World Cup, which will also be our last pre-World Cup episode. And then it will finally time for the World Cup to start. See you all on Wednesday. Bye.